Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 2,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
You thought the quarterback situation was settled, didn't you? You saw Kyler Murray walk through that door, put on the purple and gold, and you said to yourself, all right, that's it. We got our guy. Well, hold on a second, because what I'm about to tell you is going to flip that entire assumption on its head. And trust me, this isn't some clickbait nonsense or wild speculation from the outside. This is coming from inside the building, from people who actually know what's happening behind closed doors. The competition is still wide open, my friend. J.J. McCarthy hasn't packed his bags. He hasn't stepped aside. And the Vikings front office hasn't crowned anybody yet. That alone should tell you everything you need to know about where this team really stands right now. But before we get deep into that absolute powder keg of a situation, we need to talk about what's happening on the other side of the ball, because the defense is going through something major right now. We're talking about a changing of the guard, a transition that's been building quietly but is about to become impossible to ignore. Harrison Smith, the legend, the anchor, the guy who has defined what it means to play safety in Minnesota for over a decade, is running out of road. And everybody knows it. The front office knows it. The coaches know it. The fans know it, even if they don't want to say it out loud. Time doesn't stop for anybody, not even legends. And while Smith might have one more year left in the tank, maybe two if we're being generous, the Vikings cannot afford to wait until he's completely done to figure out who's next. They tried that approach before, and it blew up in their faces spectacularly. Remember 2022? Remember when the Vikings used high draft picks on Lewis Cine and Andrew Booth Jr., thinking they had solved the secondary for the next 5 years? Yeah, how'd that work out? Absolute disaster. Zero return. Nothing. And now the entire secondary is feeling the aftershocks of that whiff, because when you lose time in the development process, when you burn picks on guys who can't stay healthy or can't play at the level you need, you're forced to scramble later. You're forced to reach. You're forced to take risks you didn't want to take. And that's exactly where the Vikings are right now. They're staring down the barrel of a future without Harrison Smith, and they need an answer fast. That's where Dillon Thieneman comes in. Over the last few days, multiple analysts, multiple draft experts, multiple mock drafts have all started connecting the same dots. Vikings at number 18, Dillon Thieneman on the board. And it's not just happening once or twice. It's happening over and over again, and when you see that kind of pattern, when you see that kind of consistency, that's not a coincidence. That's a real possibility starting to take shape. And here's the thing that's really getting people excited. It's not just about raw talent, although Thieneman has plenty of that. It's about the style of play, the instincts, the way he processes the game. Analysts have actually started comparing him to Harrison Smith. Not because he's the same player, because nobody's the same player as Harrison Smith, but because of the way he sees the field, the way he anticipates plays before they happen, the way he shows up all over the secondary like some kind of defensive ghost. That's what jumps off the tape. And in a Brian Flores defense, a system that thrives on versatility, on moving guys around, on creating confusion and chaos for the quarterback, a player like Thieneman becomes a legitimate weapon. He can line up in multiple spots. He can cover tight ends. He can blitz. He can play deep. He can play in the box. That kind of versatility is gold in this system, and the Vikings know it. Now, is this a sure thing? Of course not. Draft night is unpredictable, and there's always a chance Thieneman gets snatched up before the Vikings pick. But the momentum is real. The buzz is real, and the need is absolutely real. This isn't a luxury pick. This isn't about adding depth for the sake of depth. This is about survival. This is about making sure the defense doesn't fall off a cliff the moment Harrison Smith hangs up his cleats. And look, I get it. Betting on a rookie to replace a legend is scary. It's uncomfortable. You want the sure thing. You want the proven veteran who's already done it at a high level. But sometimes you don't get that option. Sometimes the market doesn't give you what you want. Sometimes the only path forward is through the draft, and you better hope you get it right. Because if the Vikings whiff on this pick the way they whiffed in 2022, if they strike out again, this secondary is going to be in serious trouble for years. And that's not hyperbole. That's just reality. But while the defense is planning for the future, the offense is trying to lock down the present, because right now, the Vikings have some serious decisions to make about who stays and who goes, about who gets paid and who gets left behind. And two names are rising to the top of that list: Brian O'Neill and Jordan Addison. Let's start with O'Neill, because this one should be a no-brainer. The guy has been a rock on the offensive line for years. Year after year, he shows up, he performs, he doesn't become a problem. He solves problems. He keeps defenders off the quarterback. He opens holes in the run game. He doesn't disappear in big moments. And in the NFL, that kind of consistency is worth its weight in gold. O'Neill is getting into that stage of his career where a lot of offensive linemen start to decline, where the body starts breaking down, where the performance starts slipping. But when you watch him play, you don't see that. You see a guy who's still performing at a high level, still holding his own against elite pass rushers, still doing his job week in and week out. And here's the kicker. An extension right now could actually clear cap space. It could give the Vikings more flexibility to make other moves, to fill other holes, to keep this roster competitive. So not only does it make sense on the field, it makes sense financially. That's the kind of move that smart front offices make, and the Vikings need to get it done. Now, when we flip over to Jordan Addison, the conversation gets a lot more complicated. On the field, there's no debate. The talent is undeniable. The fit next to Justin Jefferson is real. Addison creates separation. He threatens defenses down the field. He forces safeties to pay attention. He changes the way opposing defenses have to line up. That's valuable. That's the kind of weapon that makes an offense go from good to dangerous. But here's the problem. The off-field issues are starting to pile up. It's not just one mistake. It's not just one bad decision. It's starting to feel like a pattern, and that's what bothers people. That's what makes the front office nervous. Because when you're thinking about giving a guy a big extension, when you're thinking about investing serious money and serious years into a player, you need to trust that he's going to be available, that he's going to be focused, that he's not going to be a distraction. And right now, with Addison, that trust is shaky. The talent is there, the production is there, but the off-field stuff is a red flag. And you can't just ignore red flags when you're making major financial commitments. At the same time, losing Addison wouldn't be simple either. The receiver room isn't exactly overflowing with depth. If he walks, the offense loses a major piece next to Jefferson, and that creates a problem. So, what do? Do you bet on the talent and hope the off-field stuff gets cleaned up? Or do you protect yourself, let him walk, and find someone else? That's the dilemma the Vikings are facing, and there's no easy answer. This is the kind of decision that can define a season. Betting right keeps the offense dangerous. Betting wrong gets expensive, both on the field and in the salary cap. And that's why these decisions matter so much right now, because the Vikings aren't rebuilding. They're trying to compete. They have talent. They have pieces. But if they don't manage the roster correctly, if they don't lock in the right guys and let the wrong guys walk, it's going to cost them. And that brings us to another move that flew under the radar for a lot of people but could end up being huge. The Vikings just signed an offer sheet for Ryan Vandermark, a backup tackle from the Buffalo Bills. Now, I know what you're thinking. A backup tackle? That's the big move? But hear me out. This is actually a smart, strategic play, the kind of thing that shows maturity from the front office. Because in the NFL, depth on the offensive line isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Christian Darrisaw has had his stretches on the sideline. Brian O'Neill has missed time too. And when that happens, if you don't have quality depth, the entire offense falls apart. It's that simple. Vandermark isn't a star. He's not going to make the Pro Bowl, but he's functional, he's solid. He's the kind of player who can step in when injuries hit and not be a liability. And in a league where one weak spot on the offensive line can derail an entire season, that matters. This move also creates flexibility. It frees up other players to cover multiple positions without being overloaded. It gives the coaching staff options, and options are power. Now, the Bills still have a few days to match the offer, so this isn't done yet. But if they don't match, the Vikings just quietly added a piece that could save their season down the road. That's the kind of move casual fans don't appreciate. But people who follow this team closely understand exactly why it matters. And speaking of moves that got people excited, let's talk about the one that didn't happen. Devin Achane. Oh man, when that name started getting thrown around in connection with the Vikings, the fan base went absolutely wild. And I get it, I really do. Because Kane is electric, he's explosive, he's fast, he's the kind of player who can take a screen pass 70 yards to the house on any given play. And when you imagine him in an offense that already has Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and a competent quarterback, you start dreaming big. You start thinking, oh man, this could be special. But then reality crashed the party. The Dolphins made it clear, loud and clear, that Kane is not available. Teams called, teams asked questions, teams tried to gauge the situation, and every single time they got the same answer. It's not happening. Now, is it really that simple? Because we've seen this before in the NFL. A team says a player is untouchable, and then a week later, a deal gets done. Sometimes it's strategy, sometimes it's just posturing to drive up the price. And there was even a statement from the Dolphins' general manager saying that every player can be moved for the right price. So that door that looks closed might not actually be locked. But here's the thing, even if the door is cracked open, what would the price be? Because bringing in a player like Kane wouldn't be cheap. The Vikings would have to give up a high pick, maybe multiple picks, and that's where the dilemma starts. Is it worth shaking up the roster that much? Is it worth mortgaging the future for one explosive playmaker when the team already brought back Aaron Jones, even if it's just for a short window? Maybe the smarter play is the draft. Maybe the smarter play is a more gradual build. But man, the dream was real. The dream hit this fan base hard, and you can't blame people for getting excited. And that excitement, that buzz, that level of attention the Vikings are getting in the trade market, that tells you something important. This team is relevant again. People are linking big names to Minnesota. People are talking about the Vikings as a destination. That's a good thing. That means the franchise is moving in the right direction. But what we want doesn't always happen. And for now, the Kane dream has cooled off. At least for now. And that for now part still matters. But let's get to the big one. The story that's going to dominate every conversation around this team for the next few months. The quarterback battle. Because this is not what anybody expected. When Kyler Murray signed with the Vikings, the assumption across the league was simple. Problem solved. Veteran quarterback. Proven starter. Playoff experience. The job is his. Case closed. But that's not what's happening. Not even close. And the information isn't coming from some random Twitter account or some hot take artist looking for clicks. This is coming from high-level internal sources, people inside the building, people who actually know what's going on. And what they're saying is wild. The competition is still open. McCarthy is still in the mix. The starting job is not locked up. That changes everything. Because let's be real, when Murray arrived, most people wrote McCarthy off. They assumed the young guy would sit, learn, maybe get some garbage time reps, and wait his turn. But that's not how the Vikings see it. There's still confidence in McCarthy. There's still belief that he can be the guy, and the franchise is not going to walk away from a high draft pick investment without pushing it to the limit first. That's just smart business. Now, at the same time, the pressure is real. The Vikings roster is not in full rebuild mode. There are ready-made pieces here. There's talent on both sides of the ball. This is a team that can compete right now. And in that kind of situation, patience runs out fast. So the question becomes, who gives you more security today? Murray brings experience. He's lived through the highs and the lows. He's handled full seasons as a starter. If he stays healthy, he can give you a competitive level right out of the gate. But, and this is a big but, he also carries an injury history. And that's a massive concern when you're talking about a guy who's going to be your franchise quarterback. On the other side, McCarthy represents upside. He's young, he's got room to grow, he's got the tools, but upside alone doesn't win games. Not when the margin for error is this tight, not when the roster is built to compete now. So what do? Do you go with the veteran and hope he stays healthy? Or do you bet on the young guy and hope he develops fast enough to keep up with the roster? That's the dilemma, and there's no obvious answer. And here's the part that makes this even more intense. This battle is going to play out in front of everybody. Every practice, every preseason game, every throw, every mistake, every great play is going to be dissected, analyzed, debated. The pressure is going to be enormous, and whoever wins this battle is going to define the Vikings season, because quarterback defines everything: the offense, the rhythm, the confidence of the entire team. If they get this decision right, the Vikings come in strong, ready to compete. But if they get it wrong, if they pick the wrong guy, the bill comes due fast, and it comes due hard. So, when you step back and look at everything we've talked about here, when you take in the full picture, you realize just how critical this moment is for the Vikings. The defense is trying to plan for the future while fixing mistakes from the past. The offense is trying to lock in key pieces without overpaying for risk. There's smart strategic movement happening on the offensive line to make sure the whole thing doesn't collapse mid-season. There was a dream edition that got the fan base buzzing, but it stayed just out of reach. And now, to cap it all off, there's a quarterback battle that nobody expected to be this wide open. This is not a calm phase. This is not a team just going through the motions. This is one of those moments that defines a season, maybe even defines the next few years of this franchise. Either the Vikings finally click, everything comes together, and this team makes a real run, or they keep coming up short. And I'm telling you this with all the experience of someone who has watched this team for decades. When the Vikings hit this kind of crossroads, something big either comes out of it or it hurts. And right now, these decisions feel heavy. They feel consequential, because they are. So here's what I want from you. Tell me how you see this. Are you rolling with Kyler Murray and trusting the veteran experience? Or are you betting on J.J. McCarthy and the upside? Do you like the Dillon Thieneman pick at 18? Or do you think the Vikings should go in a different direction? What about the Jordan Addison situation? Do you pay him and hope the off-field stuff gets cleaned up? Or do you let him walk and protect the franchise? I want to hear your takes. Drop them in the comments. Let's have a real conversation about where this team is headed, because this is the kind of stuff that matters. This is the kind of analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. And if you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button right now. It's free. It helps the channel grow. It helps build this community of people who actually care about the details, who want more than just surface-level headlines. We're building something real here, and I want you to be part of it. Like this video if you got value out of it. Share it with other Vikings fans who need to know what's really happening. And stick around, because we're just getting started. The season is coming, and there's a lot more to talk about. Stay tuned.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 2,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.